All right, everyone, let's talk about some very weird things that are happening lately in Lost Ark. And I'm going to start off with the big one here, and that is the Crystal Exchange. And something that you guys might have noticed, it's obviously going to be a bit different on your server, but the Crystal Exchange prices are back up again, and they really went up pretty darn quickly. If you take a look on the US West Coast Mari server right now, we're back above 500 gold per 100 blue crystals, and this isn't as bad as it was at its absolute peak, which was, between 8 to 900 gold per 100 blue crystals. But considering it was like in the low 300s for a while, just a week ago, it's pretty crazy to see these prices back above 500 now. So that's something that I wanted to talk about. Another thing as well, which has actually been really interesting, is taking a look at the player count and population on the Steam charts for Lost Ark. And I want to point out here that Lost Ark has actually been gaining players for a little while now, but this can be very deceiving here, because obviously a really big problem in Lost Ark that I'm sure a lot of you guys are very well aware of is bots. And it seems like this is unfortunately been getting worse again, and I just see bots basically all over now. They're in these giant trains that just, like, it's super obvious when you see them. And this feels like, unfortunately, even though Amazon addressed that they're going to be working to tackle the bot issues, it feels like it's starting to slip out of control again. So when we look at these player count numbers, you guys will see here that yes, the numbers are up, and it's definitely not insignificant. If you take a look, at the bottom of population counts for Lost Ark, 2 to 3 weeks ago, you could see that we were like below 350,000. But now we've steadily over the last week or so been above 450,000 pretty much every single day. So that's an increase of over 25%, but how many of them are going to be bots? So that's something else that I wanted to talk about a bit today. And of course, also very importantly, to kind of tie these two topics together, the player counts, the Crystal Exchange, very importantly, let's talk about the economy in Lost Ark as well. Especially this enhancement material page, because this is probably where a massive amount of the total transactions of the market are going to be taking place, people buying and selling their materials. And there's some very interesting things that I've noticed with these prices as well. Obviously, a lot of them are going to tie into the population, the botting issues, all that sort of stuff going on. But a lot of them also have to do with this new update that's coming out in a new class that's going to have some major impacts on prices on the market as well. So going to the market here, something that I've noticed really I've been paying a lot of attention to is the prices of T2 materials. Now, the reason why I point out specifically tier 2 materials is because these have been the most affected in the last, week or so. And this is going to be primarily driven by the new class that is coming out. Now, if you're wondering why not tier 1 and why not tier 3 materials, well, tier 1 materials have been sitting at 1 gold per bundle for a very long time now. There's just so much of an excess of tier 1 materials that yes, all these people who are going to be playing the new class are going to go through and use a bunch of tier 1 materials, but because there's just such a high supply, the increased demand with the new class coming out is still not going to be enough to end up driving prices above the minimum. And you can see it's starting to get really close here for these destruction stones. Maybe some of you guys, when you guys are watching this video at the time of you taking a look at the market, maybe some of them have gone up to 2 gold per bundle of 10 of these tier 1 destruction stones. But I would imagine that very quickly, if they do go up to 2 gold, after the hype of people rolling the new class and getting through tier 1, these are going to fall back down to 1 gold and probably stay at 1 gold for basically, the remainder of the game's history here, just because once you get through tier 1, you don't need these materials anymore. There's just such a high supply, and the only real spike in demand is going to be when people make new characters, when new classes come out. Now, tier 3 materials. This is an interesting one here, because tier 3 materials haven't really gone up in price. They've kind of been staying steady, which is important because for a while, tier 3 prices were on a big plummet. They all of a sudden started to go down and down and down really quickly, but they've kind of been hovering at around this point. Destruction stones did actually go up a little bit, but they've been hovering, at least on my server, around this point. And the reason why I don't think that these have gone up is because tier 3 is a ways down the road. For a lot of people who are going to be playing the new class. You are going to eventually need these tier 3 materials, but remember, if you're just starting a new character, you've still got to go through tier 1 and tier 2. Obviously, with the new power pass that we're going to get with this update as well, you can bypass some of that, which might even cause tier 1 prices to You know, tier 1's not going to be too much affected because these are just basically always going to be sitting at 1 gold each, but you've got a ways to go before tier 3. So I don't think a lot of people really have that on their minds at this point. So it's really the bottleneck and the need for all those tier 2 materials. Like tier 2, especially with making new characters and alts, is a massive grind. You've got to go through a lot of these Guardian Stones and a lot of these Destruction Stones in order to kind of break the hurdle to go from 600 to 1100 and get to tier 3. So these have really gone up, and I think at the minimum I saw these sitting on our server for 3 gold each, and they're up to 6 gold, and they're still going up here. And that's quite a bit. For tier 2 materials, remember that it's really hard to compare prices of tier 2 to tier 3 because you end up getting way more tier 2 materials per Chaos Dungeon run because we don't have all of the tier 3 Chaos Dungeons yet. So even though these aren't actually as expensive as tier 3s, you can see that they're technically 1 gold less. Even if they're lower, you're actually getting more gold from the tier 2 materials because you just get way more of them per Chaos Dungeon run. So this is me personally, how I've been just printing money lately. You guys might have noticed my gold count has been going up pretty quickly. Not anything super insane, but I have been taking advantage of this massive desire for tier 2 materials with the new class coming out. And if you guys are running through any of those, you know, 600 plus or even like the 960, 1080 Chaos Dungeons, one single run of doing the last Chaos Dungeon before tier 3 is going to get you like 800 to 1,000 of these. Just one single run with rest bonus, or like 400 to 500 without rest bonus. So if I do 2 runs with rest bonus on that last Chaos Dungeon before tier 3, I notice I'm getting almost 2,000 of these in like 5 to 10 minutes of running Chaos Dungeons on a tier 2 alt. So, you know, you're looking right there at like 1,000 gold of just Guardian Stones, and that doesn't even count the Destruction Stones. Now, I don't anticipate that this is going to stick for very long. In fact, that's kind of what I want to tie up this video with, is what are my predictions going forward and what do I think is going to happen? As soon as the demand for all of these tier 2 materials with the new class kind of settles down, I think that we're going to see a pretty big, significant crash to tier 2 prices. These will probably end up going back down to 3 gold, and eventually there's even the possibility that these are going to end up sitting at 1 gold each. I think it's still going to be a while before we get to that point, but they're definitely not going to stay at like 6 to 7 gold for very long. Now, I think it's very likely that we're going to see prices on the market go down after this update, at least until the next big update that we get. But what's a bit more tricky here is going to be the exchange, and I want to end off with my predictions for the exchange going forward. And unfortunately, the bad news is I think it would be dishonest for me to give you guys an incredibly strong prediction of the exchange, because I've been paying attention to this since day one. And the more that I look at it, the more confident I get that really the exchange is going to be tied with Amazon's ability to handle the bot issue in the game. And I've said this before, but if the botting issue gets out of control, the exchange gets out of control. If Amazon is able to tackle the botting issue, it seems like the exchange tends to die down a bit. So I know they had a really big ban wave a while ago, and that's obviously when we saw that first giant market crash. Clearly, it's starting to get out of control a little bit again, so maybe it's time for Amazon to go back and taking another look at it. So anyway, that's kind of going to be it for this video. I just wanted to have a bit of a discussion about all the important things that are kind of tying together with this big update that we're getting. So let me know what you guys think about basically everything: the market, the exchange, the population count, the botting issue. What do you guys think? Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a quick like. Consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this in the future. And feel free to check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Salt, where I'll be streaming Lost Ark as well as other games. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good one, and until next time.